And finally, we're welcoming our special guest speaker, Howard Schultz, to the virtual stage. Howard, as many of you know, is Chairman Emeritus and former CEO of Starbucks. He grew the coffee empire from 100 to over 30,000 locations across the globe and has guided the organization through many challenging times. Howard is an expert on leading through crisis and, so importantly, leading with humanity. He'll be sharing some of his personal experiences and insights with Tim in our very special final session.
Hi everybody, I'm Tim Sadler, the CEO and co-founder of Tessian, and we're here today to talk about leadership in times of adversity. And for the security community joining us today, leadership doesn't just apply to your immediate team, but the whole company and the employee base that you have to protect. And what better person to share their experience of leading through adversity than the former CEO of Starbucks, Howard Schultz. Howard, it is a great honor to have you with us here today. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you very much,
now,
Tim.
Howard,
you asked me to introduce myself, so I'm Howard Schultz, Chairman Emeritus of Starbucks. I'm honored to be with you, Tim.
It's great to have you here today. Sorry, we're just figuring out that little lag on the call there. Howard, like so many others, I've been really lucky to learn from your leadership lessons as the CEO of Starbucks. And for anybody who does an ounce of research on that company, they will hear that it was all about the people. Why do you think it's so important that leaders invest in their people?
Well, I think regardless of what business you're in, whether you're in the consumer business, the tech business, or the security business, it's always all about the people and the culture and values and guiding principles of an organization. When we began at Starbucks in 1987, when we had 11 stores and 100 employees, we actually framed a unique way to look at the business. And that was to try and achieve the fragile balance between the fiduciary responsibility of building shareholder value and the conscience and the benevolence necessary to share success with our people. And I think in the environment that we're living in today, perhaps more than any other time, certainly in my lifetime, you can't build a company, attract and retain great people unless people recognize that they are part of something larger than themselves and that they believe 100% with great trust and confidence in the management team and their leaders and their managers in the mission of the enterprise. And so this is a time when leaders must recognize the importance of truth, transparency, being vulnerable in the moment, and bringing your people along with you.
And for you, I know that you've said this a number of times, and it's something I picked up on. It's not just about being good enough, though. I think you have this saying, which is you've got to exceed the expectations of your people. How do you go about achieving that as a leader?
Well, actually, we took it a step further than that. We said, if you want to exceed the expectations of your customers, you have to first exceed the expectations of your people. And in the environment, again, that we're living in today, it's not only exceeding the expectations of your people in terms of compensation, but about the values and value of the enterprise. And I think in the environment that we are all trying to navigate through today, people are coming to work with a tremendous level of anxiety and uncertainty, because there are, in my view, 3 pandemics going on at once. Not only the pandemic of COVID, but the pandemic of our political system here in America, where we've lost trust and confidence in our institutions. And third, the third pandemic is the unbelievable level, I think, of lack of understanding of racial inequality, racism, and in terms of our election here in America, the possibility of voter oppression. And so those 3 pandemics are colliding at once. And so if you are building a business or managing people, it's not just managing and leading your business, because that isn't the only thing your people and your employees are dealing with. They are living and dealing with many other aspects of their life and their life experience and their personal situation. They are bringing that to work, whether they are on Zoom calls at home or not. And as a manager and a leader, you must understand with great sensitivity and compassion. That if we want to exceed the expectations of our people, then as managers and leaders, we need to walk in the shoes of our people. And that is what I mean by exceeding expectations of our people at a time like this.
I think that's so important. And again, that was another thing that really stuck with me, this notion that actually the role of a company is, it's no longer just a place where people show up, come to work, maybe they're here 9 to 5. It has to be so much more, especially given this turbulent time where actually people, if they can't, I think we spoke about it previously, Howard, where you said, if you can't put your faith in the work that you're doing and you can't be proud of that, then, there are so many other things that, there are so few other places where you can put that pride or you can find that pride.
Right.
Now, when you were building Starbucks, you were a young leader yourself. I think you were in your early 30s when you bought the company. What guided you or what helped you in establishing this great culture for that company as you built it?
Well, I think all of us have a life experience and a personal story. Having grown up in public housing, where I saw firsthand the fracturing of the American dream with my parents, I understood at an early age what could happen when your family and the resources of the family are left behind. And so in building Starbucks, I wanted to really create a company in which we were managing and leading the company through the lens of humanity. Now, it's easy to say that. It's very hard to do. What do I mean by that? Well, when you're leading a company that's growing at 50, 100% a year, and you've got the wind at your back, it's very easy to be humane. But the challenge for leaders in starting a company and dealing with adversity is what happens when the challenges are difficult and the wind is in your face. Are you going to compromise your values and your integrity and your ethics for a short-term gain? And now, everyone who works in a company remembers the actions of what leaders do in good times and bad. And what you want to do as a leader is ensure the fact that you are imprinting the organization with the values that people will remember during bad times. And so in terms of your question, I was trying to build the kind of company that my father, an uneducated blue-collar worker who didn't get respect in the workforce, could work for. And in effect, trying to build the kind of company, regardless of your station in life, that you would be valued and respected. And that's why we gave ownership to everybody, comprehensive health care to everybody, and free college education. All of those things we felt were important in terms of a company's responsibility. And I think the question for all of us today is, what is the role and responsibility of a for-profit company in today's world?
And I think there's so much there to unpack. We're talking here about leading through times of adversity. And one of the things you said there was, when the wind, it's easy to live up to your values when the wind's at your back. I wanted to draw on a point of history at Starbucks, which is when you returned as a CEO, which I think was in January 2008. And the financial crisis was in full swing. And from what I understand, Starbucks was in some financial difficulty at the time. And one of the first things that you wanted to do on your return, and to me, this really speaks to that notion of, you have to live your values in good times and you have to live your values in bad times. One of the first things that you did was to take 11,000 store managers to New Orleans at a cost of $33 million and share the news that your company was 7 months away from insolvency. Why was it so important that you did this?
Tim, I have to commend you on your research. That's perfect.
Thank you.
The company was in dire straits. And I wanted to be in front of the most important person at Starbucks, which is the store manager. And I said, we've got to get everybody in one room. And believe it or not, we went to New Orleans for 3 days. And this was not a getaway. This was not a retreat. This was a come to Jesus for the company. Now, before we had 1 minute of our meeting, every single person who came to New Orleans devoted hours of work in the community in the 9th Ward post-Katrina, and we contributed 55,000 hours of community service, again demonstrating the values of the company. Now, the story you bring up is this. I had an opportunity that on the 3rd day to give a $30 million speech, the cost of the event. And before I gave the speech, my colleagues and a couple of board members asked me, what was I going to share with the people? What was the rallying cry? And I laid it out for them that I was going to tell them the dire condition that we were in. And in fact, if we went 7 more months like this, Starbucks was going to be insolvent. That's how bad it was. And the people around me were so afraid, basically saying, you can't tell them this. You will scare the crap out of them. They won't be able to handle this kind of information. And the question at that moment is, do you trust your people enough to have the same information that you have? And the answer has to be yes. You can't lead people by hiding information. You can't be a Pentagon general. You've got to be on the battlefield, in the mud with them, and they have to have the same information you do. So I stood up in front of 11,000 people, and I asked them 2 things. One is I laid out the problem, but I asked them to join with me, to lock arms, to all of us facing in the same direction, to be aligned against what we have to do. And don't do it for me. Do it for your people you work with, and do it for your family. And the speech did not turn Starbucks around, but we roared out of New Orleans like a tidal wave. And 7 months passed, and we never looked back. And of course, today Starbucks has 32,000 stores in 83 countries and one of the most recognized brands in the world. But we have challenges just like everybody else. But the HR issue in every company, the human condition, human behavior, if you can unlock that, and let me say it this way. If you separate the culture from the strategy, is you have a great strategy but a bad culture, I think 9 times out of 10, you are not going to achieve the aspiration of that strategy. The execution is going to be flawed. You have a world-class culture where there is a currency of trust throughout the organization, where everyone believes in the mission, each other, and we're going to take the hill together. You link that with an average strategy, with a lot of competition. You give me that scenario, and I tell you, you are going to win. Because culture, and I hate to use this word, comes strategy.
And I think that's so important when we think about also leading teams, leading our people, and protecting the company that we serve as well. And I'm going to use a word that I'll call it, I don't know, has ever been used at a security summit before in this context, which is about something you told me, Howard, which was, vulnerability can actually help you build stronger bonds with your people. Maybe tell us a bit about that. Why is it important to be vulnerable with your people, and how does that help you get stronger?
I want to answer that question. I'm glad you asked me that. I want to answer the question with a story. It's going to take a while to tell the story, but it's so important that the audience listens to it. So don't cut this out, okay, Tim?
Oh, we're not going to cut this out. Please share it with us.
Okay. So your question was about vulnerability, but I'm going to link it to humility. The importance of being a humble servant leader and at the same time being vulnerable. So here's the story, then I'm going to come back to the quick answer to your question. I'm Jewish and I go to Israel often. And many, many years ago, I established a relationship with a very pious, important rabbi in Israel. So religious and so orthodox and such a good person. And I went to the Wailing Wall with the rabbi. This rabbi would be the equivalent of a cardinal in the Vatican. Such a high priest. And I was going to the Wailing Wall with the rabbi. Now, the Wailing Wall is not only perhaps the most important religious site in Israel, perhaps one of the most important in the world. And people come from all over the world to touch the wall and to pray there. I went to the wall with the rabbi, and we're walking, and we get to about 10 yards to the wall. 10 yards, and the rabbi stops me. And he says, I can't go any further than this. And I say, Rabbi, what do you mean you can't go any further than this? Now remember, this is one of the most pious men you've ever met in your life, so religious, so committed to Jewish faith and to God. And he says, I have never been any further than this. And with that, he takes his hand and he pushes me to the wall. And he stays put. Tears are coming down my eyes. I'm just so emotionally spent by what just happened. I can't understand it. I say the prayer and I turn around and I say to Rabbi, I don't understand what you just did. What do you mean you've never been any further than this? And he says to me, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. Now that was an extraordinary lesson in humility and in leadership for me. What does it mean to be a humble servant, a humble leader? What does it mean to be vulnerable? So your question is, in front of your people, be transparent, be honest, share the stage, don't look for the credit. Provide an opportunity for everyone in the organization to learn. Demonstrate humility. The world is hungry for it. We are longing for truth. We're longing for people to be vulnerable, to be humble, and we're longing for people who we believe are the kind of people our children will emulate. And when the rabbi said to me, I can't go any further, it was an extraordinary lesson in life. And you never know where you're going to be and who or what you're going to learn from. But take those lessons and share them with other people, as I just did with you.
We so appreciate you doing that. I think it's all too easy for us to forget that, we put up tough defenses, we have thick skin, we feel that we need to be bold and brave, so often. But actually, sharing vulnerability, being vulnerable with those around us actually allows us to, get closer, and people come closer when they see that, we all have imperfections, right? We're all working on something.
Yeah, and especially for men, we're not taught to be vulnerable. We're not taught to be sensitive. And I think the more you can reveal to your people about who you are, and take the defenses off, and be real and be authentic, the better off we will be.
I want to go to something that you said over a year ago now, but I think it was January 2019. I'm quoting you, but it really struck me when I heard this. You said that the elephant in the room of the country today is humanity. And it really resonated, I think, with many of the challenges that we're facing right now, in society, but also we see this in many companies. I wanted to get your thoughts on how has that quote aged for you, given where we are today?
As I said to you earlier, I really believe we're living through 3 pandemics at once, all colliding with one another. And I think, especially for young people, it's very easy for young people today to lose trust and confidence in the future. And when I speak about humanity as the issue in the room, the elephant in the room, is I just think people are living with tremendous anxiety and uncertainty and are so hungry to be lifted up by something that's real, that's something that's truthful. And at Tession, you're trying to build a great, enduring company. You're trying to provide a much-needed service to your customers. If you can do that while at the same time building an organization in which people are truly valued for who they are, and people are seen and understood and really feel like they are part of an organization where they themselves feel as if they are not only contributors, but they are being valued in a way that's so unusual. If you can lift humanity and integrate humanity into the core purpose and reason for being of Tession, And if everyone on the call can integrate and lift up their people and recognize the importance of humanity in their business, every single business on this call will be better for it. Because we, as a people, in the US and all over the world, we are hungry, longing for humanity, for truth, and for people and organizations that we can believe in.
And I think that's something that's it's such a powerful statement. That's something we can all take away into our practice, whether we're leading a company, we're leading a team, or we are serving our company. And again, I think something that's so unique and special about the security community is that leadership is your team, it's the people who report to you, but you're having to show leadership for the whole company. There is a huge task ahead every single day. You're tasked with the security and the protection of the whole company. And one thing I wanted us to finish on, Howard, and really kind of bring it all home for the people who'll be watching this, which is there is often so much pressure in our day-to-day lives, or we are tasked with really important initiatives and really important things. And I think the remarkable, or one of the remarkable moments that, again, you've shared with us today, and is, for anyone who does any research, they will see, is those moments when faced with extreme difficulty or uncertainty, you are able to deeply not only live your values, but I think go back to your values and embrace your values. And the question I have, or the advice that I would love to finish on, is what can you offer, or what advice would you share with people who are on the call today thinking, this sounds great, but actually I've got the pressure of my day-to-day job just to get through. How can I ensure that I am constantly living those values, the values I have for myself, the values that my company has for me? What advice would you give to them?
That's a very big question, Tim. I'll try my best.
I saved the best till last.
When each of us goes home at night and we're sitting with our wife or husband or partner or family, and we have an opportunity to talk about the company that we are part of or the work we did today, the rhetorical question is, did you as a leader provide the people who work with and for you an opportunity to speak about their work in the company with pride? With pride. And if the answer is yes, then you know that you can start your day tomorrow realizing that what you did today was really, really good. The challenge we have as leaders is we got to do it more often than not. And I think what we always try to do at Starbucks is answer the question in the affirmative. Are we making our customers and our people proud of the equity of our brand, the values of our company, and the guiding principles of what is our core purpose and reason for being? And let me say, in a week or two is the 50th anniversary of Milton Friedman's famous essay about the role and responsibility of a company, a corporation. Now, Milton Friedman was a god in terms of his economic acuity, but I disagree with humility that Milton Friedman's theory that a business's primary responsibility was to its shareholders and to make a profit. I don't think that applies today. It goes back to what I said earlier. We all have to be in the business of improving the lives of our people, the communities we serve. And I bet you that your customers and the customers of theirs want to do business with companies and management teams who are values-based. That's never been more important to me than to recognize the critical importance of business today to lead with its heart and with its conscience.
I think that's a fantastic note to finish on. And again, Howard, thank you so much for your time today and sharing all of this insight and guidance with us. It's been absolutely incredible to have you join us today for the summit. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Tim, it's my pleasure, and I'm a big fan of you and the company, and wish you all the best. Thanks so much.